So in the previous classes, we have studied about the assertive nationalists, right? So we have just learnt about who are these assertive nationalists, how they emerged in Congress, what are the reasons for their emergence, and what are their methods we have read. Now in today's class, we are going to learn about what are their achievements, what exactly they have achieved. So these assertive nationalists, they added a glorious chapter to the history of national movement. That means, see, because of this assertive nationalist involvement, the national movement has took a new phase. Altogether, a new phase has begun because of these assertive nationalists. And what exactly they did? They clarified the objectives of national movement. With their methods, they clarified what objective we are fighting, and also they taught people self-confidence and self-reliance, and also prepared social base of the movement. So that means they taught people know how to face the British without depending on them. They said how to plan and how to depend on our own strength for dealing the British, and also they prepared social base, so which is very important. So what is social base here? That means having majority people's support, especially the masses, okay, the common people, they entering into the movement began with the that was the greatest achievement that assertive nationalist has made. And who are the people that they have included in this? They have included the middle class people, the students, youth, and even women. So these three and these three, I mean, they worked as a, like youth and women also were included in national movement. So these all together prepared a social base for the national movement, and this was altogether a new thing introduced by assertive nationalists. So these were able to inculcate national pride by extolling India's past. So the greatest, another first, if you look at point by point achievement of these assertive nationalists, what was their first achievement? You can call it like inculcate national pride. Okay, so how they wanted to inculcate that feeling of nationalism and pride of being India and all by extolling India's past. That means they used to say about many great heroic acts of our ancient or our ancestors, like you take Shivaji Maharaj and others, how they fought against these foreign rulers. So if you take Shivaji, how he fought against the Mughals. So such a great heroic acts and all of our ancestral heroes were remembered, were reminded to people. When they were reminded, automatically people got inculcated with the national pride. Yes, so we had such a great legacy. So this kind of feelings and sentiments started in people. So how they extolled India's past by bringing Ganapati and Shivaji festivals to arouse national sentiments. So to make people feel that we are all one, they organized Ganapati festival, that is setting up of idol for some days, doing pujas and all, and later immersion of this idol, so through a rally and all. So these all together created a unification among people and a sentiment of their own culture. And Shivaji festival, that reminds people of the great heroic acts of Shivaji, so who fought against Mughals for uniting and saving his people. And also through their writings, through Tilak especially. Okay, so Tilak was responsible for Ganapati and Shivaji festivals, and also Bal Gangadhar Tilak through his writings. So where in Maharatha and Kesari, so these are the newspapers which were started by Tilak, and through his newspapers he preached nationalism. So he used to write many articles and other things in that newspapers which inspired many leaders. So they gave new slogans to the Indian nationalistic movement. This was also an achievement of them. So slogans always keeps the sentiment in a more active manner. So such sentiments were given by these people like non-cooperation, passive resistance, mass agitation, and self-reliance. So these kind of slogans really popularized, and they were very much attractive to people, and they spoke. This was one great achievement they did, and they spoke, wrote, and edited newspapers in vernacular languages. This is another important achievement. By adapting vernacular languages as medium, they have built, or they were successful in conveying their message to the number of people, or to the large number of people. So how they were successful in conveying what they were thinking? By using vernacular languages. Even you take the newspaper started by them, or you take the meetings organized by them, they always used vernacular languages. So these were the beginning achievements of these assertive nationalists. So coming to the next slide. So here, through their writings and speeches. Okay. So coming to the other achievements of them, through their writings and speeches, they infused, that means they injected into Indians the spirit of active nationalism. So how they infuse the spirit of active nationalism? Through their writings and also through their speeches. So the speeches given by assertive nationalists were so powerful and impressive that, and the writings were so impressive that they used to inspire a lot common people, and they made them to come and actively participate in nationalistic movement. So because of these assertive nationalists, a class of revolutionaries were also developed. So these revolutionaries were also an important group within the assertive nationalists, who are who are very active in participation and leading the movement. So these revolutionaries, who were the assertive nationalists, they also were prepared to sacrifice their lives and property for the sake of the country. So the speeches and writings and other things inspired these people so much that they were even ready to sacrifice their lives for the purpose of the country, and also they were even ready to lose their property. So such was the great influence. Revolutionary methods were always prescribed by these assertive nationalists from the beginning. So they exposed, this is another achievement, they exposed the hollowness of the belief in the sense of justice and fair play of the British rulers. So early nationalists always believed that we should always be fair enough with British, we should not go against their laws, we should always have faith on the justice done by British. But the assertive nationalists, they could expose this hollowness. That means that this justice and fair play which were adapted by the early nationalists is no longer workable. They are not supposed to deliver any kind of result. So they exposed that these methods are not going to work. So that also helped. That was also a great achievement. Understood? Not only inspiring people and all, already existing methods were not work out. I mean, they are not workable. So that thing was exposed to people. So they convinced people that they could not be through justice and fair play. You cannot achieve anything from British. Hence, it was the greatest achievement of these people. And self-reliance was promoted by setting up Swadeshi stores that sold Indian-made goods. So I told you that self-reliance was the important concept of these assertives. So how they wanted to become self-reliant, they started Swadeshi stores. So these are the stores where Indian-made goods are sold. So people were inspired to buy Indian goods. For example, you take Jamshedji Tata. He was the richest Indian by this time, and what he did, he started iron and steel industries, so that through these industries started by an Indian, Indians could get jobs. So Indianized industries were started by this man called Jamshedji Tata. So, so in spite there is a fact that industry had a long gestation period. That means once the industry is constructed, first investment has to be kept, then we have to bring the material, then we have to start the production, then finally the product will come. So this is a very prolonged process. So in spite of the fact that it had a long gestation period, that means for the production to come into truth, see, when the national movement has begun, you cannot construct a factory immediately and give jobs. It takes some time for the construction, later to bring resources, later to recruit people, later to start production. So these all are there, but still Jamshedji Tata and all, they were fair enough, they were very brave enough to announce that they're starting an industry. So, like Bengal Chemical Works was set up during this phase. Even Rabindranath Tagore set up a Swadeshi Bhandar. So, this kind of industries, local industries, were set up by Indians. So, Rabindranath Tagore even set up Swadeshi Bhandar. So, here Bhandar means a store. Okay, store where all like modern day you can see the Patanjali store and all such stores, right? So similarly, Swadeshi Bhandar, the local made goods all will be available in this store. So these are all the Indianized system of, I mean, these are the Indian making the things Indianized. These are the efforts kept, or these are the achievements brought out or shown by these assertives to people. They just didn't speak, they just showed it in practice, and they declared that what India needed was total freedom from foreign rule. And so they also, their achievement was, it is not that we should have the British all time together to say, to administer us or to govern us. They said India needs complete freedom from foreign rule. So there is no need of Britishers ruling India. They should leave India and allow Indians to rule themselves. That was a very straightforward point kept, as their agenda. And many new educational institutions were also set up during this Swadeshi movement. So in terms of education, the government's colleges and schools which were set up, they were all with a lot of restrictions. The educated people were not allowed to participate in national movement and all. So in that connection, so what these assertives thought, they wanted to establish Swadeshi educational institutions. So like the National Council of Education was set up in 1906. Okay, so National Council of Education, it was set up in 1906. Later it was developed into Jadavpur University. Similarly, National College was set up at Kolkata, and Sri Aurobindo Ghosh was its principal. So Indianized the universities, educational institutions which are not under the restrictions of the British government were started by Indians. So especially these assertive Indians. This was another greatest achievement in terms of these assertives. The movement, which had started from Bengal, soon spread to other parts of the country. Swadeshi and boycott of foreign goods assumed an all India character. So here the Bengal movement was successful, sorry, the anti partition Bengal movement was very popular because of the assertive nationalist methods called Swadeshi and boycott. So this Swadeshi and boycott was very successful, even though partition happened, but these methods were very successful. They gained popularity among people. So these methods even assumed an all India character. That means people around India, they started following this kind of methods. They started using Indian goods and they started boycotting the foreign goods. And it was because of the efforts and sacrifices made by assertive leaders that the partition of Bengal was annulled in 1911. So that means what happened in 1911, Lord Hardinge, what he did, he has annulled, that means he has repealed this act. So he repealed this Bengal Partition Act based on religion, and he has done, there was a modification in Bengal partition based on the language speaking people in the Bengal presidency. It was separated, not because on the religious grounds. That was later repealed. The partition was later repealed, or it was revoked, and later it was again done based on the language that speaks. So even nationalists were demanding that if you really want to make it administrative convenience, why don't you divide it based on the language that people speak, like Bihar in Hindi will be spoken, and you take in Odisha, Odia will be spoken. So based on that, you divide. There's no problem to us. So this was all done later because of the efforts and sacrifices made by these early nationalists. And who are the leaders of assertive nationalism? So first one was Bal Gangadhar Tilak. So his 1856 to 1920, this was a period where Bal Gangadhar Tilak had, this was the period actually. So here, Bal Gangadhar Tilak is known as the father of assertive nationalism. So he was referred as father. That means he was the first person to begin this kind of ideologies among people, especially within the Congress. He played a leading role in popularizing the cult of patriotism. So, what do you mean by cult here? So, here you can refer this cult as cultivation. Okay, he was the man who first responsible for cultivating patriotism. So, he was a he was a beginner. He was a pioneer. So, and making Congress movement broad based. So he made Congress party to expand its influence on the common people, or making it a broad based party. So to have its foundation not just limited to middle class and other people, it was because of Bal Gangadhar Tilak's pioneering efforts. There was a broad based movement, broad based support for Congress. And Tilak was born in Maharashtra. After taking his degree in law, he founded the Pune New English School. So he was a man who responds. I told you that these assertive nationalists, they were always starting Indianized kind of schools, colleges, and educational institutions. One such contribution of Bal Gangadhar Tilak was Pune New English School. He founded it, and the Deccan Education Society was also founded by him under Justice Ranede's guidance in 1884. So he started Pune New English Medium School. He also founded Deccan Education Society with guidance of Justice Ranade, and also Gokhale and Tilak were its members. They were members of this Deccan Educational Society. So they got inspired from this Justice Ranade, and they started this kind of educational societies. So this educational society had been responsible for setting up of many educational institutions, including the famous Ferguson College at Pune. So under one educational society, what happens? These people, these assertive nationalists like Bal Gangadhar Tilak, and Bal Gangadhar Tilak established many educational institutions. So that in this manner, they were trying to help Indians. And what are his contributions individually? So demand for Swaraj. He was the first person to declare the demand of Swaraj. So what was his famous slogan? Swaraj is my birthright, he said. That means by birth he is having that right. Who are these Britishers to give us this right? It is our right, so we will gain our right again. And he said that I shall, and it could be achieved. I shall have it. He said, Swaraj is my birthright and I shall have it. And Tilak was convinced that political rights could be achieved by aggressively demanding them. So Bal Gangadhar Tilak believed in the aggressive national. So he believed in the aggressiveness. That means we have to be very active. We should always be showing that passive resistance. We should resist what they're doing. So that how we have to do aggressively. Aggressively is not that we should go angrily and all, but it should be more mass based and very active based participation should be there. We should never be so humble, down to earth, and we should not be very loyal to them. That is meant by aggressiveness. not that very angry and all. So his entry in the Indian political scene was marked by a shift from petitions to demand for political rights. So initially, he was also giving petitions and all. Like with early nationalists, he was just influenced, and he because Justice Ranade and all were early nationalists. Even you take Gopal Krishna Gokhale and all, they were early nationalists. Being under their influence, he was also initially giving some petitions and trying to pacify the Britishers. But later, he shifted to demand for political rights, and he was the first nationalist leader who sought close contact with the masses. So he established a very close contact with the masses, means common people, and with the objective and to inculcate courage, self-defense, and patriotism. So in order to make people patriotic about their country, to teach them self-defense and also courage, Bal Gangadhar Tilak always spent very close to common people. He organized akharas and lati clubs where physical training was imparted. So it was Bal Gangadhar Tilak who organized akhadas. So it was pronounced as akhadas and also lati clubs. These were started by Bal Gangadhar Tilak. So akhadas is a place where they stay there. Students will stay there. They have a training institute within the campus, and they'll be trained in all the areas, in all aspects of nationalism, and even Lathi clubs where physical training will be given, like how to defend themselves. All such training will be given within these places. So these Lathi clubs and akhadas were started by Bal Gangadhar Tilak, and he also preached nationalism. How? How did he preach nationalism? He started using the traditional religious Ganapati festival and also to propagate nationalist ideas through songs and speeches. So he understood the importance of the entertainment, or you can call like a media mode of inculcating, what you call nationalism. So what he did, he organized Ganapati festival so that people will come together. You all know that today even we celebrate Ganesh Chaturthi and all in a very big way. So the way idol is set up, the way the ritual is carried and how it is immersed, it's a huge event that unites people. And also songs and speeches were so good that it used to attract people. So this all were introduced by Bal Gangadhar Tilak to preach nationalism. He glorified Shivaji and started the Shivaji festival to encourage young Maharashtrians. So he said Shivaji was always like a hero for the Maharashtrians. So he encouraged Maharashtrians by starting Shivaji festival. He started two newspapers. One is Maharatha in English and Kesari in Marathi. So in Maharashtra, Marathi is the main language. So he started a vernacular newspaper in Marathi known as Kesari and Maharatha in English. So these two became the mouthpieces of his ideas. Through these newspapers, he used to write many articles against the Britishers. Also, he used to encourage and he used to inspire people of India. So through these newspapers, he preached nationalism and taught people to be courageous and self-reliant. See, you take at any point with these assertives or these assertive nationalists, these two are very very common: self-reliance and courage. They always preach about these things. He wrote two well-known books, the Gita Rahasya and the Arctic Home of Vedas. So the Rahasya of Bhagavad Gita and the Arctic Home of Vedas were the two books written by Bal Gangadhar Tilak. So what you have to remember is, what was his slogan? Swaraj is my birthright and I shall have it. That was his famous thing. Next, he started Ganapati festival. He started Shivaji festival. That was his another achievement. Then his newspapers, one in English Maharatha, another in Marathi Kesari. Then what were his books? Gita Rahasya and Arctic home of Vedas. So these are the points which we have to remember about Bal Gangadhar Tilak. And he established Home Rule League. So Tilak set up a Home Rule League at Pune in 1916 to attain self-government within the British Empire by constitutional means. So by constitutional means, so within the British Empire, he started a Home Rule League to attain self-government. That means through this Home Rule League, he wanted to form a government. So that through that government, under British way, he wanted to rule. I mean, he wanted Indians to have their own ruling. So he was forerunner of Gandhiji. So let us see what is this forerunner of Gandhiji. Tilak was the forerunner of Mahatma Gandhi in a number of ways. That means before the arrival of Gandhi and his way of national movement, in many aspects, he has introduced almost all the things that Gandhiji has implemented. The methods adopted by Gandhiji were in advance adopted by Bal Gangadhar Tilak. In what ways? Swaraj. This was first spoken about by Bal Gangadhar Tilak. Later, Mahatma Gandhi also spoke about this complete independence. Second one was he said he sought close contact with the masses. That means Tilak believed that only the masses of India, that means common people of India, could only involve can only be responsible in getting the independence, which was also Gandhi. Gandhi also gave followed the same thing. And third one was Tilak preached the idea of Swadeshi and boycott and prohibition. So these ideas were also preached and followed by Mahatma Gandhi later on. So one is Swaraj, second one is involving the masses, third one is Swadeshi and boycott principles. So fourth one was Tilak had to suffer several terms of imprisonment for the sake of country. So as their principle itself was having sacrifice, Tilak, Bal Gangadhar Tilak was sent many times to prison. So that was a suffering he adapted. Even Mahatma Gandhi believed in this kind of suffering and he followed it. Even he underwent many kind of suffering when Britishers were there. He went also to prison many times. And Tilak's selfless patriotism, strong determination and courage aroused the masses against the British. So the qualities in Tilak like selfless patriotism, that means he is a very genuine Desh Bhakt, you can call. So he's a very devotee of the country, for devotee of the people. So very genuine person. This quality, strong determination, that means whatever he thinks, it should be done. So this kind of quality and courage, which was another important thing, attracted the masses, that means people, and opened a new chapter in the history of India's freedom struggle. So this was about, or this is about Bal Gangadhar Tilak. Next assertive nationalist was Bipin Chandra. So let us study who is this man and what was his contribution and what did he achieve. So born in Sylhet, now a part of Bangladesh. So in the East Bengal part, this man took his birth in the year 1858. So in year 1858, Bipin Chandra has taken birth and he is known as father of the revolutionary thought in India. So revolutionary means a very aggressive manner and there is no it is not case of obeying whatever they say. So he just retorted back whatever has been done by British. He was father of revolutionary thought, that means trying to revolt against the policies of British. He started his political career as a social reformer attached to the Brahma Samaj. So through Brahma Samaj, which was a social reforming organization, uh, so through this Brahma Samaj, he used to work and was a great social reformer. He visited a number of European countries and United States of America also. And it was during these visits he observed how people resisted foreign domination. So if you take United States, how it got its freedom in 1775, and how they fought against the British and other European countries, how they fought against the Britishers and other colonial powers. This he got a very good idea about this resistance and methods. So he was a very inspired by those revolutionary methods, and he himself is a revolutionary. So 1886 he joined the Indian National Congress for the freedom fight. And so what did he do? His contributions. Role as a journalist. So he worked for Bengal Public Opinion, the Tribune, and New India to propagate his brand of nationalism. What is his brand of nationalism? Revolutionary methods, adopting revolts, aggressively revolting against the rulers or the foreign rulers. That is his brand. So through Bengal Public Opinion and Tribune, New India, these were the newspapers which he worked for, and he propagated his ideas there. So British government found his writings seditious. That means they were provoking Indians to against British. So he was required to give testimony against Aurobindo Ghosh, which he refused. So at one point of time, so Bipin Chandra was forced by Britishers to give testimony. That means, like the Britishers wanted Bipin Chandra to say, to become a witness against Aurobindo Ghosh. Okay, the Britishers wanted Bipin Chandra to act as a witness against Aurobindo Ghosh, so which he refused. So Bipin Chandra refused to say, be as a witness against Aurobindo Ghosh or testimony against Ghosh. So on his refusal, he was also arrested and sentenced to 6 months of imprisonment. So for 6 months he was kept in prison. And coming to the another greatest contribution, national education. So he wanted national education to be the basis of freedom movement. So it would arouse nationalistic passions and become an effective instrument of social progress. So he believed that education would definitely help Indian masses to enter into movement with a more nationalistic passion. That means with more and more interest, people would definitely join the national movement and becomes an effective instrument of social progress. So on one hand, the society will, because he is a reformer, right? So if education is imparted to people, they easily try to reform themselves in the society, as well as they try to inculcate the nationalistic feelings at the same time. So what were the social and economic reforms that were brought by Bipin Chandra? He wanted to remove social and economic evils from the society. Being a social reformer, he was always, and being a member of Brahma Samaj and all, so he was always thinking of to remove the evils in society. For this, he made the following efforts: opposing the caste system and its rigid rules, interdining and intermixing were encouraged by him. So intercaste dinings, that means eating food together and mixing of the people together, was encouraged by him. So his focus was on rigid caste system. So he advocated widow remarriages. This, I mean, no need to explain more and more. So education of women was also concerned as a very important thing, and he stressed the need for development of indigenous industries in the country. So that means if we have our own indigenous industries, then our products can be manufactured more and our market can be strengthened. So that was his idea. He preached the use of Swadeshi and boycott of foreign goods to eradicate poverty and unemployment. So unless we target the economy of British by boycotting their goods, and we can encourage only Swadeshi goods, only then poverty can be eradicated from India. By this time, poverty was very much growing and unemployment was very high. To avoid this, to stop or to eradicate these two things, Swadeshi and boycott is a very important concept. And to establish equality in society, he wanted to tax the rich more heavily than the poor. So the rich people should be taxed more compared to poor. That was one of his ideas. He demanded 48 hours of work in a week and an increase in the wages. So he was very much concerned about the laborers, factory workers, and also he demanded 48 hours of work per week and increase in the wages regularly. So Bipin Chandra died in 1932. So coming to another important assertive nationalist, Lala Lajpat Rai. He was popularly known as Punjab Kesari or Sher-e-Punjab. So that means he was referred as the Tiger of Punjab. So he was an eminent lawyer, prolific writer, enlightened educator, social reformer, and a staunch fighter against the British rule. So you can call him an all-rounder. So like he was serving as a lawyer and also a writer and also an educator. So along with this, he was also a social reformer from Punjab. He was born at Dhudike, Jagron in Punjab. So what was his influence? He was influenced by Arya Samaj movement started by Swami Dayanand Saraswati. So Arya Samaj movement was very much influencing this man, Lala Lajpat Rai. And Lord Curzon's ruthless measures forced him to fight the British rule through mass education. So you know what did Lord Curzon did? He brought the Universities Act. He brought the restrictions on press. He was the person responsible for Bengal partition. So he even so many things he has done. So his ruthless measures made Lala Lajpat Rai to enter into the fight against British rule through mass education. So he wanted people to get educated so that they can build that mass movement. His speeches against misrule of British invited the wrath and he was arrested several times. So that means so so when he gives speeches and all, it brings wrath. That means extreme anger. So the British got extremely angered by the speeches of Lala Lajpat Rai, and he was arrested many times because of such provocative speeches. He joined Congress in 1888 and remained its worker till the end of his life. He joined Assertive Nationalists in 1907. So he was a member in Congress throughout his life, and also he belongs to this assertive nationalist group ideology, and he carried on agitation against the agrarian policy of British government. That means the policy adopted by British towards the agrarians, that means the agriculture and the farmers, was not liked by Lala Lajpat Rai. So he launched an agitation, that means always a movement against in support of this agricultural sector or farmers. He was arrested and deported along with Sardar Ajit Singh to Mandalay jail to Burma. So because of his agitation against the agrarian policy of British, he was sent to prison in Burma or Mandalay jail in Burma. Lalaji supported workers' movements in 1920. So factory workers and all such union movements, he was leading those movements. And also, he was first president of All India Trade Union Congress. That means within Congress party, so there are trade unions will be there. So All India Trade Union Congress was one such union, trade union, which involves in business activities and all. They have one trade union. So he was first president of that trade union, and he was the first Indians to link imperialism with capitalism. That means the capitalist who always have lot of money invest this money to occupy other countries so that they can increase their wealth. So this kind of relation has been established by Lala Lajpat Rai. That means if somebody is imperialistic, then what they do, or if somebody is capitalistic in nature, that means all the wealth is accumulated in one industrial person, what he tries to do, he'll try to use that wealth for expanding his business. So he will look for colonies outside his outside his country, and there using the money, he tried to involve in politics and try to occupy that areas and take control of that resources. That establishment of link between imperialism with capitalism was done by Lala Lajpat Rai. and they justified the need of working class to join the national movement. So he even inspired the working laborers in factories to join the national movement. He was elected as president of Indian National Congress in 1920. He also became a member of Servants of India Society. So the main goal of Servants of India Society was training the nationalistic leaders. So he became a member and he also got trained and he also responsible for training other people. So Lalaji was arrested in 1922 along with other leaders. On his release, he joined Motilal Nehru and his Swaraj party. 23 he was elected to the Central Legislative Assembly. So he was arrested in 1922. After his release, he joined another party. He left Congress and he joined Swaraj party. There are many reasons, but let's not go into depth, such a depth thing, why he joined Swaraj party and all. But just remember that he joined Swaraj party started by Motilal Nehru. He even was elected to council, that to Central Legislative Council, not provincial. And he left. However, he left Swaraj party because he did not share its political philosophy. So politically, Swaraj party was not matching. In later on, he understood that Swaraj party was not politically matching for him. So he left the party. So what were his contributions? As an educationist and forceful writer, what were his contributions? He was a prolific writer. So you know that his writings will be very influential and very inspiring. So when he was in USA, he started a monthly magazine, Young India. So magazine of started by Lala Lajpat Rai was Young India. So for what purpose he started this magazine? To give the message of Swaraj. And what were his publications? What did he publish? Books. Call to Young India, England's Debt to India, and the Political Future of India. So these were the books written by Lala Lajpat Rai. Monthly magazine was Young India. Through this, he was propagating Swaraj concept. His books were Call to Young India, England's Debt to India, Political Future of India. So he founded Punjabi, Vande Mataram, and People and English weekly newspapers. So he founded Punjabi and Vande Mataram newspapers in Urdu daily. So in Urdu language, they used to come as a daily newspaper, and People as an English newspaper which comes weekly. And he also wrote a book on national education. So he also wrote a book on education and its importance. So reforming of prevalent educational systems. So whatever education system was there, I know we need changes. That was promoted by through his books, National Education. He was also a social reformer. Lajpat Rai was associated with the Arya Samaj movement. So he was instrumental in the expansion of DAV College at Lahore in 1886. So this DAV College was also, so as I said, he was a staunch follower of Arya Samaj. So Dayanand, the Anglo-Vedic College. That means he wanted Anglo-Vedic means here both westernized as well as this Vedic education was both imparted. So it was started at Lahore by, he was instrumental. Actually, he was very important. He played a very important role in expansion of this college at Lahore. He opened orphanages, hospitals, and schools. He set up Servants of People Society for the welfare of downtrodden and outcasts. So, as a social reformer, he was very much concerned about the castes in or the rigid caste system in India and the problems faced by the lower caste. So, he introduced many welfare programs for them, like he started some Servants of People Society, especially for these lower caste people. And what was his political work outside India? So what, I mean, he was traveling to many places and all outside India. What did he do there? So he went to abroad to mobilize people's opinion in favor of India's struggle for freedom. He went to America. He joined the Ghadar party there. So this man, Lala Lajpati Rai, so Lala Lajpat Rai, he was also he went abroad to mobilize opinion in favor of India's struggle for freedom. See, within the assertive nationalists, there were some people who were very much revolutionary in attitude, and they went outside and they just started some party called Gadar Party. So through this party in USA, they were trying to mobilize public opinion against British and in favor of Indians. So this was the purpose of that party. Ghadar in Urdu means revolution. So this was a revolutionary party started by some revolutionary Indians who has that kind of ideology in America. So he went to America and he joined this Ghadar party there. But this party, these revolutionaries, they started outside India and they were trying to plan things to implement in India. So, and especially they were more operational outside India. So, such a party was Ghadar party, and Lala Lajpat Rai joined this Ghadar party. So, what were his writings? Young India. So, that was his greatest writing. Young India was written by Lala Lajpat Rai. So through this, what they preach always, assertive nationalism, Indian youth, so patriotism, these were taught. And when, in 1928, while leading a procession at Lahore against the Simon Commission. So we will discuss this Simon Commission and later what was this Simon Commission and all. So this was a commission sent by British to India, and when this committee was coming to India, he was against this committee. He launched a procession or a rally. So he was injured in a lathi charge. So by name Scott, a police officer by name Scott, what he did? He gave orders for lathi charge against all the rally. And in the rally, Lala Lajpat Rai was there, and he was severely injured in that lathi charge. He succumbed to his injuries a month later on November 17, 1928. So that means he could not tolerate his injuries, and now because of the injuries, he died on November 17th, 1928. So on the above, or on one day he was wounded, he said, "Lathi blows inflicted on me would prove some day as nails into the coffin of the British Empire." So that means coffin means like where dead bodies will be kept. When he was wounded badly and he was in hospital, he said that the lathi blows that he received would definitely make that lathi blows would convert as nails that would be someday as nails in the coffin of the British Empire. That means the British Empire would be dead one day, and the lathi blows he received will be acting like a nails. So I think his prophecy was fulfilled on 15th August 1947. But the Lala Lajpat Rai's death was taken very seriously by Bhagat Singh. He didn't like such a revolutionary leader getting lathi charged and getting died. So which made Bhagat Singh also very angry, and he was always looking for a chance to take revenge for Lala Lajpat Rai's death.